Have you ever thought about starting your own podcast? When I was trying to get to this podcast off the ground, I had so many questions. How do I record an episode? Where do I find my background music? How do I get my show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all the other places people like to listen? Where do I find the advertisers? The answer to every one of these questions is really simple. Anchor. Anchor is a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing and monetizing your podcast. And best of all, it's 100% free and 100% ridiculously easy to use. So, if you want to start a podcast, go to anchor.fm/start to join me and the diverse community of podcasters already using Anchor. That's anchor.fm/start. I can't wait to hear your podcast. We're 2 days from Halloween, everyone. And I just want to say, of course, and welcome to the spooky podcast of DC Thursday, where I review The Batman versus Dracula. Well, jokes aside, this is a full episode. This first full episode of DC Thursday since the pandemic. Sure, we got the topics, and it's also the first since the DC fandom coverage. But let's hope this one works. Let's hope there won't be any problems with the app regarding to anything I do with DC. Sorry. Well, we're going to cover with, of course, the plot. When I say the story, which is, of course, when it's regarding to movies. Well, this one is, of course, the plot. Where, of course, that Dracula was risen from the dead by a blood of a notorious villain, which I'll be revealing in a full-on review. But he goes against Gotham's vigilante, the Batman. Which is, of course, it was based on the Kids WB, Saturday morning cartoon. Alright, I'm sorry. The Kids WB weekdays cartoon, The Batman. Which, of course, I consider to be the Halloween special of it. Because the Universal monsters were part of Halloween, however. And although this is the third time, of course, it's like the few times I review a movie in October, but it involves Dracula. Well, yet, I think I already did the Costello and Abbott meeting the monsters throughout the weeknights, and of course, everything. But back to the characters. Well, the featured characters in this are, of course, Bruce Wayne, also the Batman, Vicky Vale, Pennyworth, Penguin, the Joker, and Dracula. Which, of course, I really like the cast of this, the characters. Well, you got some known voice actors like, of course, Tara Strong, Tom Kenny, Kevin Michael Richardson, who are, of course, the veteran voice actors. You got Reno Romero, Alistair Duncan, and, of course, Peter Stormare. But we are, of course, right there at that mark. The music. Ah, man, that music just loops in my head. Just with the orchestra version and the gritty rock. And that gritty guitar. Every time it shows the Batman, and the orchestra when it involves Dracula. Oh man, oh man, oh man. Terrifying scene. Well, I mean, there were a lot of terrifying scenes with, with the vampires. But the one that stood out the terrifying the most of the one of the vampires is, of course, it's the other villain, which I'll be talking about. So, the final verdict on this, I say it's on HBO Max. Check it out. And if you did watch the Batman, I highly recommend this because I give this an 8.8 out of 10. Because even though this is, this is a spooky one, I gotta say, I really, really like the fight scenes in there. And of course, there's a things that is terrifying, and it's got badass action. And of course, now on and off, with Vicky Vale. Alright guys, we're gonna go to a full-on. If you haven't seen this, please stop the podcast now, go to HBO Max, and watch this. But if you haven't, we're gonna go in there. But it's sound of the transition of Batman. That means, you have been warned. Alright guys, before I'm going to start this review, let's take a brief seconds of what I'm going to say. I haven't gotten a chance to watch the Batman. But, when I was a preteen. Before I was in my teenhood. I'd say, I haven't got the chance to watch the Batman. Because I don't have a local channels back then, because, with Kids WB, with the Warner Brothers. But, like I say, I haven't gotten to that. But, I finally got a chance, I do have a chance to watch the Batman vs. Dracula, so we're off to the start, ladies and gentlemen. We begin with the film, so here we go. We begin with the film taking place in Arkham Asylum. And while the criminals and, insanies of the asylum were playing bingo. But I spotted some that are featured in this, but not casted in. Like the ventriloquist. And of course, Penguin has gotten the Penguin, or Oswald Cobblepot, it's gonna bingo. But of course, the guards have the news that Joker has escaped. That has escaped Arkham Asylum. And of course, everyone was taken back into their cells. The Penguin isn't going to go down easily. And of course, he had a fight with the guard. That baton went to the guard's head. Literally. Thus, the Penguin escaped, and Bruce Wayne, who's Batman, has gotten the news of the escape of Joker and the Penguin. And of course, Penguin was already told by Priester that the money is hidden somewhere with that tomb on a cross, which is of course the cemetery, located at Gotham Cemetery. And then Joker came in and was gonna do, be business partners, but then tricked the Penguin by using a joy buzzer. And then he fell off in the water. But he got back up, and Batman was chasing the Joker. They were having a fight scene, and the Penguin went into the cemetery and was looking for the tomb with the cross where the money was hidden. But, however, there was no money, and then, of course, break the chains, and then there was the umbrella, with the knife hidden in the umbrella. His hand was totally bleeding, and therefore, out came the blood, and was put on the grave of someone. But it was not just someone's grave, it was the grave of the Prince of Darkness himself. Right before I'm gonna say anything, but I guess, hey, Dracula. Which of course looks like a creature. And he was hunting down Penguin, going after his blood. But then, here comes the night guard of the cemetery. And he's victim number 1 of Dracula. But no, he didn't die. He turned into the undead. And although the vampire night guard, however, wants to feed on the Penguin, but Dracula said he needs a human servant. But Penguin said he's also a cobblepot and he serves no one. Until Dracula uses hypnosis on him. That is, introduce himself as the Penguin, and he's happily served someone. So, yeah. They told him to wake him only at nighttime, because the sunlight is the weakness of Dracula. But meanwhile, however, for the Joker, his encounter with Batman, they had a fight. And then, of course, it was raining. And it was going to use a joy buzzer on, of course, Batman, but Batman was too smart for him. Knew it, and then, of course, fell down to the water with the joy buzzer, of course, being electrocuted. Yikes. And I thought the toaster was bad. well, pardon me, because, there's something funny about toasters, and bathtubs. That's just, that's tragic. But Joker, however, with the joy buzzer, that's tragic. But meanwhile, however, Bruce returns to his butler and guardian, Alfred Pennyworth. He just told him that Joker met his demise, but his trail against the Penguin is cold-blooded. No, gone cold. Yep, and then there we see Batman on a date with someone. Was just talking, and of course, the recorder, it was none other than the Gotham reporter herself, Vicky Vale, who was also, of course, was like the Arkham Batman, but although different from thankfully not like the Telltale version of Vicky Vale. Yeah, my clone, Mr. 46 on Amateur, recommend you guys to play the Telltale series of Batman Season 1, and you'll see why. Why I say not like, that version of Vicky Vale. And then, of course, after the interview, he just want to walk Vicky home, but then ask if he would like to be be part of the expo, but she would not be comfortable as a reporter, but nope. Bruce, of course, wanted her to come to the expo as his date. And then, of course, on Saturday, dinner. So, today's Thursday. So, the day's Thursday, huh? But then, nighttime arrives. And a woman's purse has been stolen by a thief. And then, of course, the night guard vampire arrives. Thought it was a rent-a-cop, but then he got bitten and becomes victim number 2. And the woman, of course, with the thief, of course, turned into a vampire and became victim number 3. And then, of course, they were all chasing Batman. Like, no weapons, just claws and teeth. And then they disappeared. But then Dracula realized that Transylvania looked different. But Penguin, who is now the servant of Dracula, just told the Dark Lord that he's in Gotham City. Because long ago in Transylvania, everybody just stormed into Dracula's castle to vanquish the beast. And then here comes Professor Van Helsing with the stake and hammer, and put the stake in his heart. Thus the Lord of the Vampires is no more, and his remains were sailed from Transylvania into Gotham City. And now that he's back from the dead. Oh, yeah. I'm done going. Oh, yeah. Pretty much it. So, back to what I was saying, of course. And then, of course, we cut to the next day, where, of course, Bruce was mentioning, back at the manor, saying that there's vampires. But Alfred does not believe him. So they gotta get ready for the expo. Bruce is still concerned about that. But until Alfred mentions that Vicky Vale's gonna be there, holding Bruce's arm, which he smiled. Then later of course, around the tomb, however, Dracula was looking much better than he was before. But I can't keep numbers of the victims who became vampires. But then, of course, it looks much better because after victims, and then, of course, he goes to the expo, and he flirted with Vic, and he's being real seductive to Vicky Vale. You know how Dracula is with women, various of them. Bela Lugosi, Christopher Lee, and now DC's version of Dracula. And then Bruce Wayne, haven't met him. And then introduced himself as Alucard. And three of Alfred's, of course, royal waiters. Well, two. Is just give him the duties. But the third one, however, got his shirt untucked. And then he was found while carrying hors d'oeuvres, refilling the wine. And then Dracula just bit him. It becomes the the umpteenth victim. And then, of course, hold on to them. And in the mirror, his reflection could not be seen, as he was bitten by Dracula. But although, as for Bruce Wayne, of course, Alucard had hypnotized Bruce. And of course, Bruce was having a moment. And then, of course, Alfred now believes that the vampire. And then writes Alucard in reverse. And that Alucard was revealed to be none other than Dracula. And then, of course, there's been a report that they seen a bat, and it's not, of course, Dracula. They thought it was Batman, being, of course, the terrifying. And he was being hunted by the SWAT team, of course, who became victims of Dracula. And then, of course, after the last bit of the SWAT were gone, well, at least I got the Dos Equis with me, so I can drink, so I can prevent from getting tired. So he met with, of course, Dracula. And the two begin to fight. And I'd say that's interesting. You got the Batman versus the monster that turns into a bat. And then... I'd say, okay, that is interesting style. And then... Dracula would, wants Batman to join him. But Bruce declined, and then, of course, tried to bite him until the sunlight. Because that's one of Dracula's weaknesses, the others being garlic. And then, of course, with Bruce Wayne having the nightmares, first with the death of his parents, and then with the Batman becoming the Bat Vampire, bent on bites on Bruce Wayne, but then it was a dream after he was badly wounded after his battle. And then, of course, after that, night comes, and then everybody's starting to get in, lock their doors, and then one of the citizens came out, and told that little girl that of course it's, dangerous to be outside. But until he becomes the next victim. After the little girl became the victim of being a vampire. And then the elderly man was chased by 3 vampires. Well, now, I'll get to that in a bit, but... Well, it turns out that Joker is not dead, however. And then, of course, the Penguin wouldn't allow Joker. And he was being chased. But the Joker just got what he deserved. And in other words, he becomes the next victim. And he becomes a vampire. And then he went to the blood bank. And then, of course, he bit the nurse. Too bad I missed an opportunity to use a Warner Brothers reference. Animaniacs. Hello, nurse. It's just a nurse, not that beautiful, to be honest. Then, of course, we have a fight scene between Batman and Vampire Joker. Where, of course, the garlic loaded up with garlic bombs, and of course, the bullet and garlics themselves. And then, of course, we have Joker fighting Batman, and then the bombs did the trick. So he became the test subject of Batman. Which, of course, try and make the cure. First, they tried the green serum. And sunlight. Test 1. Did not work. And then, test 2. Did not work. And then test 3, while filling up the generator, does not work. And then Vicky Vale's at the door, and it's Saturday night. Well, Alfred was supposed to make the dinner, but he lets Vicky Vale in, of course, one who is, of course, just trying to look for why she dating Bruce Wayne. Like money, good looks, a body. Well, hot bod. Well, her words, not mine. So, yeah. Let me take a drink, you know. So, yeah. Back to I say, but of course, it's just realized that Bruce had went through hell and back. And of course, right before, the Bruce is giving it blood and giving it to Vampire Joker. And then, of course, right before he's distracting Vicky Vale, turns out that Dracula had a bride. And her name is Carmilla. Not Carmella. Carmilla. No, with an I, not an E. Yeah, but that bride is not Fabulous. So, yeah. I'm just saying, and I apologize when I say so, yeah, because, you know, just how many times have I had to take a drink every time, you know? But, back to what I was saying. And of course, Bruce Wayne had tried the blue one, and then, of course, and voila! The blood is stable, in other words, that's the cure. And then, of course, he cured Joker, but it then told him where Joker, of course, saying, asking where's Penguin, and Bruce brought up Penguin, and then, of course, the cemetery, it's revealed that the burial of Dracula was in the cemetery, Gotham Cemetery. But although Vicky Vale was trying to get a train back home, and then encounters Dr. Alucard again. But it was actually Dracula. And of course, she tried to call Bruce. Now, tried to call her beloved Bruce, but no answer. And then Bruce did the same thing, trying to call his beloved Vicky, but she's nowhere to be seen. And then just left the voice message about, the rescuing. And then, of course, he goes into the cemetery and he fights all the vampire victims, or in that words, the lost ones. And then, of course, he cured them, while leaving one for Dracula. Not to cure him, but to euthanize him. And then, of course, Dracula was, of course, bringing in Vicky Vale. Well, because of the last name. And then, of course, just placed her in a coffin when she's unconscious, just ready to get her soul to be taken to revive his beloved wife, Carmilla, who's been reduced to ashes. But although not dead yet. And then, of course, Batman came in the nick of time. Well, okay, too late. But then, he kneeled down under hypnosis of Dracula. But, and the Vicky Vale was gonna be a skeleton, while Carmilla is getting revived. But then it cuts to, of course, what happened at a movie theater. No, at Crime Alley. Martha got shot, Thomas got shot, and there's a gravestone, and then, of course, fell down in a hole as a boy and then sees a bat, and that's where he became Batman. So he's immune to that. You could say he's the DC version of Van Helsing. And I mean Bruce Wayne. We already know that, there's already a Van Helsing, so yeah. Oh. Medic. So, yeah. Like I say. Although we have a fight scene, of course, but then, of course, he destroyed the ghost, and of course, it's been reversed, and Vicky falls back to normal. And then she's glad to see Batman saving her, but of course, he told her to run. And then, of course, Penguin was chasing her. Although Dracula was chasing him all the way to the Batcave. No, just make sure there's some sunlight. Vicky, all ill, tried to escape the enslaved Penguin. But then, he grabbed her as like, bad touch, stranger danger. Like John Tron. Yeah, because that's a bad touch right there. Oh my, And he makes Fat Bastard looks tolerable. And then, of course, chases her around with the tombstone. The one with the cross, like the criminal told Cobblepot of where the loot is at. But he don't care about that. It's just emphasized that he tried to get the girl. Now, trying to get Vicky. Yeah, that's kind of not appropriate. Like I say, that's not appropriate. And then, of course, with Batman being in the hands of Dracula, and then Alfred distracted him, but but that's not, the cures are immune to the undead. No, not the living, but the undead is immune. And then, of course, Rising is a prince that Batman is no match for the Lord of the Vampires, the Prince of, and then Darkness. And I was like, but isn't that Ozzy Osbourne? And speaking of Ozzy, Oswald Cobblepot was like, here comes Ozzy. I was like, I'm sorry, Oswald, but there's no bats for you to bite the head out of. I mean, you're no Ozzy Osbourne. And then, back when I'm saying, uses the generator to turn Dracula to dust, because the sunlight is the weakness. It kills him instantly, because that is the second scariest Dracula defeat I ever saw, next to Christopher Lee on Horror Dracula from the Hammer, for the Hammer films. And then say he'll get them up, and then of course they got Vicky Vale right where he wanted him. But then snapped out of it once Dracula is dead for good. And of course he saw the money and Vicky escaped. But however, the lost ones were in blankets, and so was Vicky Vale. But although it turns out that the reports say that the Batman was wrongfully blamed, caused by Penguin. And Penguin is saying it was vampires. Sure it was, Cobblepot. Sure it was. But, however, as Vicky Bell saw Batman, and she smiled. But then, of course, the reporter just said that Vicky Bell normally does the report, but now she's in the report. Ask about if it really was vampires. But nope, she's just said it's just bats. And then, of course, it ends with Batman swinging around. And that's pretty much the end of the film. I hope you all be terrified. So, we are going to end this podcast. A spooky podcast. Alright guys, that's about it for this podcast of this spooky episode movie review of DC Thursday. Well, like I say, I never watched the Batman, but I saw the movie, and I gotta say, that's an interesting concept. With the Batman versus the Prince of Darkness, the Lord of the Vampires, and of course, Batman being the DC version of Van Helsing. So, yeah. That's gonna do about it for me. I'll see you guys next time. And as always, just have a happy and safe Halloween. And of course, guys, just follow the guidelines for Halloween during this pandemic, okay? Oh, sorry. Sorry, yeah, I've been drinking. So, yeah. Enjoy yourselves.